Hi again, everyone. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Nate. We'll begin our arguments in support of native advertising by first remarking that all advertising is a necessary service. As one journalist put it, advertising lets people know what they may want to buy. Without advertising, we'd all be using one product that's been monopolized. Beyond informing the public, the revenue earned through advertising supports many vital services, chiefly free access to news and social media. In that respect, while advertising can be unethical, from a utilitarian perspective, its benefit largely outweigh the harm caused by a few bad actors. With that being said, all advertising has the same risk of being deceptive or misleading as any other. Which brings us to our first point. Native advertising in and of itself is neither more or less unethical than any other form of advertising. It is simply a new tool designed specifically for the modern world and its overwhelming shift to mobile devices, where, might we add, traditional advertising is simply ineffective.
Which brings us to our next point. Native advertising works because it is presented in the format users prefer. This means users are unobtrusively presented with messages instead of annoyingly served extra content that detracts from the experience they desire. Scientific American referred to native advertising as a huge success, and although sneaky, most viewers are savvy enough to know it's an ad. Findings from American behavioral scientists highlighted that younger generations like millennials can discern what is paid content, offering further support that this was only an issue when it first started, when people weren't as aware, but people adapt and have learned to identify these ad forms. Marcom executives consistently agree that when native advertising is done well, it's not only a great way to reach audiences on their terms, but can also serve more good than a salesy ad. As an example, the New York Times ran a piece of native advertising titled "Women Inmates: Why the Male Model Doesn't Work." This article was hailed as impressively produced and stellar journalism. It just so happened to be sponsored by Netflix's new series, Orange is the New Black. Logos for both the show and Netflix accompanied the piece to indicate and disclose its financial ties. This article shined a truthful light on an important subject and one that readers enjoyed consuming. Simply because it was brought into existence using money from a sponsor doesn't outweigh its ethical benefit. On the other side, The Atlantic ran a sponsored article on Scientology that was perceived negatively. Ultimately, whether the native ad was viewed positively or negatively had to do with the team responsible, as well as presentation and other contextual factors like message topic.
This last point also segues into another important argument in the pro column. Disclosure is more apparent with native advertising than any other type of ad. This is because more often than not, native ads include either a small blurb or an overlay that indicates it is sponsored content. These disclosure statements are also often in the form of interactive links that direct users to the actual source or sponsor of the content. This level of transparency has never existed before in advertising, a fact that by itself indicates at least some ethical foundation supporting native ads. Moreover, research has shown that simply showing content as sponsored or disclosing that something is an ad has led to an increased trust by viewers, since transparently sharing this information showcases integrity. Additionally, when viewers noticed ads that were not disclosed or clearly marked, there was a significant backlash toward the site or organization that displayed it. In that regard, the concern of undisclosed native ads can be ignored because there is more risk in not identifying sponsorship than there is in benefit in deceiving viewers.
Since the FTC called for ad labels or sponsored by statements on native advertisements in 2015, that will continue to reduce the ethical concerns around native ads. In addition, adhering to FTC guidelines and being transparent about the ad, even if it's appearing as native content on a platform, can help avoid negative reactance from viewers. Another study suggested that more detailed disclosure statements clearly addressing authorship and revenue increases positive perception of viewers, and the effectiveness of native ads, proving this isn't an unethical tactic to eliminate, but simply one to refine.
The first case brought by the FTC for native ads was against Lord & Taylor for failing to disclose paid partnerships with over 50 social media influencers and was forced to launch an internal monitoring program according to Adweek. This reinforces that it's not the concept of native advertising, but the context and approach that become unethical if deceiving consumers. An analysis published in the International Journal of Communication also found that native advertising, including influencer marketing, were acceptable ad formats if they used disclosure statements and followed the value of truth in advertising.
With that, it's clear that native advertising is an ethical method for marketers and communicators to lean on. Concerns of deception or misleading material are more connected to the intention of the advertiser and not the format itself. Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone. We look forward to your responses.